So let's continue with the discussion about the size of government that has come up, and got tons of your messages that I'll be sharing as soon as we are done with this second and final round on this issue. I would like Kweku to continue and conclude your take on you are now going to talk about why it is important to also look at the restructuring or rearrangement of some of these ministries, and that may inform our debate rather than focusing on the numbers. The question of cost has come, and I'm sure that even the president says, well, because most of them are MPs, the bedding is going to be reduced. But each one is going to have a chef, each one is going to be chauffeur driven, each one is going to have a bodyguard, they're going to have a day watchman, a night watchman, they're going to have a secretary, they're going to have a PA, fuel, they will have a vehicle, they will have free electricity, free phone bills, entertainment allowances, 30% of their salary, and other allowances. These are all extra costs to the taxpayer. Must we incur this for each appointee?
Well, I haven't completed reading this material, but perhaps Ayarga would have been the best person to help us. The salaries, and I think they are consolidated, and they of this political office holders. And so, for instance, it's only when you don't have an official accommodation that you are giving some rent allowance in lieu of that.
20%.
Yes, but if you do have, it's part of your salary, you're consolidated, am I right? Yeah. Yes, so sometimes we've got to be a bit careful when we are checking it here.
No, but that comes at the cost of the state. If the state can find you a place to use as your home.
But that has been determined by a committee and approved by Parliament. I'm saying it's been fixed. It's here. In the final one is this report of Presidential Committee on
You're saying that all of that goes into your salary.
Yes.
So we shouldn't separate it.
Yeah, when you don't paint the picture well, it creates an impression of some multiplicity of
Which one are you looking at? Is it the Boando Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
But of course, some aspect was amended, but that's to do with the president.
That's right.
On his retirement. But otherwise, you go into the one the Parliament passed, which that is on the. This is elected to the president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, 5th January 2017. But if you go deep into it, they had taken some decisions on 4th January, and Parliament made a point that Parliament has therefore approved the above structure for implementation. That is the salaries, monthly salary per year for these appointees. And you have a cabinet minister, if he's an MP. What they approved, it's 22,724 Ghana cedis. That's what is here.
Yes, per month.
Yes, and then cabinet minister, non-MP, is 22,425. Then Minister of State.
The difference is
actually, how much is it?
Yeah, but they have power. They use a certain PowerPoint. I didn't want to read that. That would just take too much time. But you have a situation where cabinet minister is graded at 76.76, that kind of thing. Then you have the Minister of State, non-MP, no, Minister of State MP. His is 20,930. Then you have Minister of State, non-MP. His is 20,631. Then you have Regional Minister, NP. Is 20,930. Regional Minister non-NP, 20,332. Then Deputy Minister MP is 19,136. Deputy Regional Minister MP, 19,136. Deputy Minister non-NP, 18,837. Then Deputy Regional Minister, non-NP, is 18,837. So it means if we're going to look for the total, we have to be careful, segment them properly, and then put them together. Otherwise, if you just take cabinet minister and you total it by 110, it's clearly wrong. You can't make that, but I can see out there when I hear people talk, that's the way they go about it. You need to do the segmentation and get the specifics.
Yeah, but they talk about the vehicle. He's an MP, he will have his own private vehicle, but he will get a vehicle nonetheless as a minister. He would need a bodyguard. He would be chauffeur-driven, of course. He would need all the other people I have mentioned.
But as I'm saying, those are things that we have accepted.
They come with the office.
With the office. So perhaps maybe we must start suggesting that we should give them bicycles to ride.
No, the question is, the concern is reduce the number so you don't have to provide so much of that.
No. You see, that is an argument. It's a legit one. But I'm saying that if that doesn't meet the president's vision, if the president thinks that this is the team I need to execute this work, and I've been consistent on this at least since 2001, I go along that line. That's it. The only time you can judge the presidents come the election time.
You were one of those who started with the campaign to consolidate the salaries.
Yes, and it helps. Okay, so to be honest with you, here in terms of ministers and deputy ministers, it says whilst in office, office accommodation is appropriately furnished and equipped according to the needs of the ministry and with adequate staff.
Okay.
That's office accommodation. Then residential accommodation, fully furnished official residence, 20% of consolidated salary in lieu of housing.
Right.
Security, 24-hour security service. Transportation, a four-wheel drive, comprehensively insured, maintained, fueled, and chauffeur-driven vehicles for the office holder. One for the office. It means two.
Yes.
Is that the impression I get? Then overseas travel for official business class air ticket, airline ticket, 4-star hotel accommodation. Protocol courtesies available. Of course, they don't do this often. Only few travel a lot. Foreign minister, finance minister.
There are those who insist that this is what they are entitled and they ought to get that.
No, if you don't travel, you don't get this particular specific. It says overseas travel for official business. If you are not traveling, you don't get this one.
The situations, that's what I'm saying. There are situations where somebody may be invited to go do something elsewhere, and those inviting will pay for the ticket. But the ticket will not be commensurate to what he's entitled by what the
ticket might be economy class.
Exactly, might be economy. And he will insist that it should be topped up so that he gets what is deserving. Yes, there are those who insist.
Mental and dental services, including health insurance for office holders, spouse and children under 18 years of age. Maximum of children 4. Other benefits, it says gratuity, there's none there. Now on retirement, they'd have none of these things apart from the option to purchase one duty post saloon car, which itself has become a controversial matter, and then gratuity as calculated according to formula. There is no doubt that cost is involved here. There's no doubt. You see, last Thursday on Metro, I concluded my submission by making a point. When you take a look at those countries, Singapore, Malaysia, when you read all from Green Street to this one, they go to look at all those jurisdictions. Why there isn't much debate and sometimes agitation? You see, when the economy is working, when hardships are low, you hardly get people agitated about what the political class are being paid in terms of the official compensation. So it is the delivery of goods and services in an efficient way that cures this mischief.
People have been talking about how the ex gratia will also, go up because the numbers have increased.
As I said, you see, this debate, when you throw it out into the streets, the masses win all the time. No government wins because you see, people play on the keyboards of people's emotions. The economic situation is harsh. There are challenges here and there. So the masses will always win this debate.
Okay.
That I concede. But it doesn't mean the government, before the masses get the chance to vote at an election, should also just sit and say, look, because people are shouting, I won't do my work. To be honest with you, it's up to the 110 ministers. In any case, don't forget, it may reduce come reshuffle. You never can tell. So this is not cast in iron.
Right. It could also increase.
Well, that's a possibility. This is mischievous mind.
Right. Now
that is true. It's a possibility, but it will go down.
Now, Mike, the issue Kuku speaks about, and everybody agrees, of course, because the constitutional provision, Article 78 is quite very clear, Article 78.1 and 78.2. This is the prerogative of the president. No constitution has been breached, so to speak. The CDD issued a statement, acknowledged that, of course, no constitution has been breached. But they quoted one of my favorite scriptures, which I quoted to President Mahama when he was exercising his constitutional power to grant pardon or remit the sentences of the Munti 3. 1 Corinthians 10:23. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. From where you sit, is it constructive to have 3 deputies for the information ministry? Is it constructive? Does it serve the purpose of the taxpayer, effectively? Or does it burden them a lot more to have an agric minister who is an expert acknowledge that he will do a good job, and to have 1 at the presidency, and to have 3 more to be in that ministry, and to have a similar, fashion replicated across the ministries? Is it about 6 ministries that are going to have 3 deputies? 5 or 6, 3 deputies. Job for the boys, you are being told to your face.
Yes, let me also start, Mr. Samson Ladi, that I would want to quote this also for the benefit of the listeners, since we've had a few quotations from yourself. It says here,
I'm quoting from the CDD's statement.
Oh, yes, I know. I'm also quoting from the Constitution of Ghana, Article 78.2, which says, the president shall appoint such number, and in everyday language means any number of ministers of state as may be necessary for the efficient running of the state. So as long as the president, in his contractual relationship with the voter and the Ghanaian, feels that this is necessary for the efficient running of the state, then it's justified. And that is why I'm saying that people may not understand the radicalization of the decision now, but all of this is going to come to the fore. And what are some of the reasons that people are looking at? People are just initially looking at personnel. But I always juxtapose this in the context of how people could not understand the president saying that I will take less taxes and yet give you more. Because in this case, it has become less is equals to more.
Yeah. In fact, the taxes are being reduced.
Yes. And if you look at this in the context of just logic, it is not feasible. It's not sensible. But if you look at it in terms of practicalization and actualization, you see it would work. Why? Because the strategy...
The savings is going back to pay ministers.
No, I'm coming. I just want to explain that concept quickly. Because now, the idea is not to tax capital and investment. We are now going to tax productivity and profitability. And so, the same 20% or 25% that has been reduced to 20%, once the profitability and productivity is more, the 20% will now be of 2 million instead of 25% of 1 million. So people won't understand that straight away in the beginning, but this is the end game. Now, coming back by the same way to the ministers. I was with one of the senior members of the NDC yesterday, and he said, and I just want to use this quotation, he said, we can achieve more with you. However, it is also positive to achieve more with more. And I think the constant that we should look at, which is in line with what Mr. Akwete said, Dr. Akwete or Professor Akwete, I'm not sure. Yes, but I just wanted to be sure which one first, doctor or professor. So, which Mr. Akwete said, is that Ghanaians want more. His emphasis was also a good point, that he feels that we will get more in the bureaucratic shift. President Akufo-Addo feels we will get more if he's able to put it in the executive shift. And I'll go into the details of why we need to look at that. One thing, President.
But you know, I had a specific question.
Oh, before I come to that, I just want to explain
about
this because
the trinity of deputies in about 6
months. Oh, I'm coming to that. Yeah, I'm coming to that. That one is on the side, this thing. But we need to understand the concept. Because you see, when somebody conceptualizes something, and now the concept is there, if you don't explain the concept to the person, they will not be able to see what is following after that.
Okay.
What President Akufo-Addo said is that Ghanaians should let the success justify it, because he's justifying the numbers because of the success that would come. And I like the expression of the fact that this needs to translate into what needs to be done. Now, what needs to be done? We came with a manifesto. The manifesto in itself sits there. The manifesto, we need to put it now into policy. After the policy, we need programs. We always used to accuse other people of putting together schemes. You see, scheme is a way to scheme the system. But we want programs, and the programs become projects. Now, I also agree with my brother on the other side who said that these projects need to be managed. But I don't believe that it is necessarily by bureaucrats. Most of these ministers are going to be sort of project managers for the specific projects that President Nana Akufo-Addo has envisaged and assigned and tasked them to. Then, of course, as they are project managers, they would need the requisite personnel underneath them.
There are projects beyond the evaluation ministry
Very much
created,
so, because the projects
beyond the
will have to be evaluated
regional
and monitored.
reorganization, beyond the inner city zongo.
Yes,
you mean,
that is a project.
And actually a new
That
one
is
too
a
has been
project, and I'm happy.
created for procurement. Adjo Asafo, the Honorable Adjo Asafo, who is the minority, leader, deputy majority leader, is now minister in charge of procurement.
Yes. So as I was explaining, the issue is these are all projects that need project managers. And that is how President Nana Akufo-Addo is now looking at governance. He's not looking at just amalgamation for the sake of it.
The deputies, I call the trinity of deputies, they will all also have specific projects to follow.
Thank you very much. And this is the vision, that we want to do this in a certain way, in a certain manner. And that is why, as I was saying, it looks as if there's just more of them for the sake of it. Look, people have given justifications.
Say thank you very much. You mean that's what is going to happen? They'll have specific projects.
I think if you listen
to
me even to explain a bit further,
right,
you will see that
I wanted to be sure about that before I move on.
Oh, no, don't worry. You know, sometimes in a lecture, the very sharp student has a lot of questions to ask. But sometimes when he allows a few things to be explained, he says, oh, I had a question, but now it's been answered. So I won't. Just give me a few minutes to explain this thing, because that is what it's about. And this is one of the reasons why we even need more information ministers to explain these things on different levels. Look, my brother, we must admit that even in terms of the way the media landscape has changed alone makes information a critical area. We need to be able to take care of the various facets that it translates into. We have a specific area, educated youth, who need certain messages. We need the grassroots, which I'm sure you understand, in terms of the information services and so on. All of this has decreased. We need to enforce it more. There are also other things that we need to do in terms of when there's an issue that Ghanaians don't understand. Because even in a lecture room where students have all got A in a medical school or law school or accountancy or whatever, there are questions that the students want to ask. And if you don't arrange for there to be TAs, various people to explain these questions, how would they get answered? So this is the concept with which President Akufo-Addo has come together with opening some of these things. Let us look at, for example, the railway ministry. I am sure that you have heard that in terms of transport, why should we have railway as a separate? I'm sure you have heard that. Within 2 months, most people must remember that the President Akufo-Addo government has just been in for only 2 months, sworn in 7th January. In fact, a lot of people are so used to the personality of President Akufo-Addo that some of them think he has been in for even a year. I remember the joke previously, I think it was in 2010, where a young kid was asked during the tenure of the former President Mills, may his soul rest in peace, who is the president of Ghana? And the young man said, Nana Akufo-Addo. That is the kind of stature he's got in terms of popularity. So people have forgotten that he's just been in for 2 months. Yet, within, I need to land on this point. Don't worry, this is a side comment. But let me.
Who is teaching him?
I don't know, but that is not even the issue. The issue is this. Yet, within 2 months, already in the State of the Nation address, and also at a recent Exim Bank conference in India, it was announced that Ghana has already been signed up under Exim Bank for a $400 million railway project. That should tell you the kind of focus. If maybe that was under transport, yes, it may have happened sooner, later. But President Akufo-Addo is telling us he is in a hurry.
Okay.
And if you want to be in a hurry for your projects, you must divide the projects.
Okay.
You must assign the projects.
Thank you.
There's a little bit more. I even wanted to add to justify the numbers in the specific areas. Just the last one, with a Greek, for example.
Okay.
I met this Indian industrialist who told me something. He said, the only way Ghana can succeed is via agriculture. The industry should come next. Now, President Nana Akufo-Addo wants to amalgamate that with industry. So he wants Agric to fire. How can you do that? Look, he said one of the most important areas that Nana Akufo-Addo can leave as a legacy, even before the green Ghana and all of that, is irrigation. And I smiled and I told him that was one of his main policies. So even to handle irrigation, to make sure that the 3 northern regions are fully irrigated so that prospective farmers are attracted to the areas and to invest and to plant and to grow green Ghana, these are the kind of things which need to be done. So even a third person in charge of irrigation alone of all agricultural farmlands in these 3 areas is in itself a vision. Okay. So this is the trajectory that Nana Akufo-Addo would want to drive Ghana.
Okay. Some would think that there were authorities that are available and various departments and agencies that could cater properly for some of these. For example, when it comes to the appointment of Adjo Asafo as Minister for Procurement, there are persons who are asking questions, and like we could say legitimate questions. There's this group, the Common Purpose Alliance Ghana, and they've done a video, brought Nana Akufo-Addo in 2001 during his vetting, where he said that he believed in institutions and he believed that we needed to allow institutions to work. And they are asking that what he has done clearly is not the Nanado in 2001 that they know, because what he's doing is seeking to undermine the institutions. Do you share that view? Let me move on. Do you share that view?
I need to just make a small intervention. Please allow me.
Sorry.
No, just 1 second.
Hold on.
1 second.
That by some of these appointments,
I'm just saying that what you're saying in that context will shift it. I am saying, for example, I agree with the bureaucracy angle by Mr. Kwete. I'm saying that, but what Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president of Ghana, wants is that those things are supervised in the way he wants to direct it.
Thank you.
So he's not undermining the institutions.
Thank you.
He's just enhancing.
And this show is actually live on the JoyNews Facebook page. JoyNews Facebook page is live on the JoyNews Facebook page. If you want to watch on DSTV, the channel is 421. Do you agree to those who argue that he's clearly undermining these institutions, the agencies, and the departments in the manner in which he's spreading the ministries all over the place?
I think when I started, I tried to demonstrate that what you call bureaucracy and what you call government has evolved. And several institutions have been set up which should be performing roles that if they focus on, they should achieve all the objectives that the president says are his objectives. And my argument really is that all those institutions have leadership also appointed by the president. So you take the energy sector, let's get back to that one. You have the minister. Now you have deputy ministers. But he spoke about the civil service. It's no longer just the civil service, because the civil service is what you have at the ministry. There's a chief director and the line directors and their secretariats and all that. That's a civil service, a typical civil service. But because energy is a specialized area requiring expertise, you now have the Energy Commission. Then you have the Petroleum Commission. Then for gas, you have the Ghana Gas Company. Then for oil, you have the GNPC. So you have all these, you now have the NPA. So you have all these technical, so these are technocracies, not bureaucracy, technocracy, which have been created, which are staffed with experts. And these are also appointed by the president. So whatever vision you have for the energy sector, you have this cadre of experts which the law enables you to appoint so that you stay away from the civil service if you think your problem is the civil service because you came and met them. But these ones, you can fire and hire the leadership and you change the boards and the commission. In fact, on the day of coming to office, all those boards still dissolved. Is that not it? So that you have the opportunity to appoint your fresh board, and then the chief executives all tendered in their resignation. Those who didn't tender in their resignations subsequently received letters dismissing them. So you have these institutions. So my argument is that as we evolve and create these specialized institutions at the disposal of presidents to achieve their objectives in those sectors, you don't need the many deputy ministers or even to create new ministerial realignments to achieve that objective in the light of the existence of these institutions. You talk about irrigation. Why? Basic SHS agricultural science will tell you that yes, you need water if you want to improve on agriculture, and irrigation is the mechanism. Go and look at the budget. How much money have you given to the Irrigation Development Authority? There's nowhere in this country that IDA will not be able to tell you where a dam is possible. If you go there and see the number of feasibility studies they have conducted of dams and irrigation facilities that need to be constructed in this country, your one village, one dam thing just doesn't fly. There must be some valley in the village to be able to collect the water.
Talking about the Irrigation Development Authority, yes, and all of these entities.
Yes.
But what they are saying is that these persons will coordinate and provide focus so that these things are achieved within the times that they expect.
And my argument is that these development authorities, these statutory authorities, these commissions, they are all also appointed by the president and answerable to him. The minister's role, strictly speaking, in every legislation, in every, even if you look at the Constitution, what is the objective of cabinet? The objective of cabinet, or the function of cabinet basically, is to advise the president. That, strictly speaking, is the function of cabinet, the ministers. Advisory. Yeah. Just to advise the president. The same way, if you look at every legislation, it says that the role of a minister in every sector is policy direction. And even some of them are so unkind to ministers that they say you can only give general policy direction, so that you leave the technocrats who usually constitute the board or the council the freedom to really do what is right in terms of technical advice that is undiluted by political interference. So my argument is that as we have evolved, strictly speaking, you don't need that size of ministers. The realignments were totally unnecessary. Take trade, for instance. You have Minister for Trade and Industry. Then you have Minister for Business Development. You've forgotten that you have Ghana Investment Promotion Council, which is also sitting in the office of the president. And you have so many other agencies that the president is directly responsible for, or he appoints the leadership. And they're going to be doing the same work. So the realignments, they're going to be the same work.
Their briefs are different.
And I think that we will not even know the full gravity of the problem until we have seen the list of presidential staffers. That is when you will see the gravity of the problem. Because the president, under the Office of President Act, can employ people to assist him in the discharge of his duties as a president. Apart from the ministers, to advise him. No, apart from the ministers to advise him. The ministers of state, who he normally puts in charge of agencies, he can also engage anybody.
Because
As a
the law
staffer.
speaks about
In
experts
consultation, yes.
experts
Yes.
and consultants.
Yes,
He
in
can bring them
consultation with
there.
the Council of State. So it is indeed when you even get that list that you will know the full size of government. Because you can have, you can have, you can have, you can
and
have,
these people,
you
are
can
they
have-
are they Article 71 holders? They get ex gratia.
The ministers who sometimes are captured as part of presidential staff. The rest are not.
They're not.
Many
I-
of them
but-
come
but-
from the
but
public service.
I understand.
Parks and gardens.
I
so
understand
and so,
that
they're all part
the
of.
letters that are issued
Have you
to some of
forgotten the
them,
debate we had here?
I understand that the letters that are issued to these presidential staffers will often say, will often point to Article
position
71.
them, yes.
No, that's
In relation to one of the
ministers
points,
of
one of the
Yes.
points that you have mentioned.
Yes,
And some of them actually-
many of the look about 80%, if not 90, of people who are captured in that presidential office act are not ministers. They are people.
I didn't say they are ministers.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
saying that
so-
you will not
so
know the
then
full
let's
size. The full size.
Full size of what?
Of the size of government until you get the
Oh,
list.
but government, the size
Oh,
of government,
listen
it
to
goes
me.
beyond the executive.
Listen to me.
You
Listen to
even
me.
alluded to that point a few
Yes, but
moments ago.
political class.
Aha.
I'm talking about political class.
office holders.
Political office
How many
holders.
did you have in
I-
the flat staff?
Okay.
The political executive.
How many did you have?
The political executive. No, I'm saying that
So
you
you
can't
tell
even
us
know
how
the
many
full
you had
size.
and you think-
Well,
you
I
will know the.
remember,
Oh,
I
let me.
remember,
What is the problem? Let me.
You know,
I remember Guama asking for the list
I
from
think you
the
have to protect me
NDC.
to be able to make
and
money.
it never came.
He came eventually.
You wouldn't know the gravity of the problem until you get the list of appointees under the office of the president, pursuant to the Office of the President Act. Because sometimes those numbers exceed even the number of ministers. And some of their conditions can even be higher than the conditions of service of some ministers. You have the chief of staff, you have the secretary to the president, then you have deputy chief of staff, then you have many people who constantly get recruited and asked to perform certain specialized services which could have been performed in the ministries or in some commissions.
Right.
But then it becomes another opportunity just to give people jobs. So let me conclude.
Efficiency
Let
or
me-
numbers?
let me
From
conclude.
what
Let me
happens,
conclude.
Mr. Yaga, from
Yes.
what happens,
Yes.
those who are appointed into the presidential staff, the presidential staffers,
Yes.
they enjoy almost the same
The same, but
benefits.
the appointment
they
letter,
get, they need,
the
they get a
appointment
house,
letter, yes,
or they
the
get an
appointment
allowance,
letter,
or they get a car.
everything that the appointment letter will usually say that you are appointed as so and so, and that your condition of service is pegged as point 51, which point is usually, let's say, that of a minister of state, a deputy minister,
Okay.
a minister and an MP, or minister MP.
Okay.
And so
Right.
I'm saying that the gravity of the problem we have today would become better understood
When we get that list.
finally get the
Okay.
list
Thank you.
of
Thank you.
appointees.
That is correct. That is correct.
Article 71 office holders are captured here.
Right.
Yes.
They do not
It's
include
as simple as
presidential
that.
staffers.
No,
Yes.
no, excuse me.
Now,
Under your
What
time,
about-
was
what
it the
about-
case? Was that what you were doing? Tell us, then we understand.
I'm talking about the Office of the President Act under ex-President Akufo, under ex-President Rawlings, under President Mills, under President Mahama. The Office of the President always recruits staff pursuant to the Office of the President Act, and their conditions of service often pegged in relation to
Okay.
other
Thank you.
appointees.
What do you say
not
to
to
those
them.
who are advocating
Yes.
that to stop we cannot know in future we are going to have 1,000 ministers perhaps. To stop this, there should be a ceiling. The provisions, Article 78 specifically, and 79 also, which also gives the president the room to appoint one or more deputy ministers. Those should be amended. In fact, Professor Kwasari is one of those who is campaigning for that should be amended. So you cap it.
So are you saying
Well,
that
I mean,
in Akim, just quick
when
one.
we have the opportunity to amend the constitution, some of these issues will come up. I don't recall that the commission that dealt with the constitutional reforms made some recommendations in this regard. I don't recall exactly what they said in relation to the number of ministers that the president can appoint. But like Mr. Kwaku said, this is a political issue. We are talking about it now. The public is talking about it. It goes into the level of approval or disapproval that the public may rate of any appointing authority. And, don't think that the appointing authority will not listen or is not that concerned. I think to have the president himself have to come out and explain this action tells you the extent to which I think this matter of the size of government is impacting on the comfort level of even those in government. So let's not discount the impact of public opinion and think that everything must be cast in strict constitutional expression for us to find a solution to a problem. I think that the minimum has been set by the Constitution. The maximum is left to individual presidents, but you must make sure you are able to carry your public with you.
Let me get your review on this constitutional provision, whether you think it doesn't actually give us a clear picture of what the drafters envisage. Article 76.
That's what I was going to actually.
76 is about the cabinet. And it says, 76.1, there shall be a cabinet which shall consist of the president, the vice president, and not less than 10 and not more than 19 ministers of state. The cabinet shall assist the president in the determination of general policy of the government, and then 3, there shall be a secretary to the cabinet and so forth. Does it not suggest to you that they may have had an understanding of what they expect to be the number for ministers?
No, I don't think so. I think cabinet is cabinet. Ministers are members of cabinet, but there are ministers who are not members of cabinet.
Okay.
And so if you interpret this clause restrictively, then you have regional ministers. If you took just the 10 regional ministers, because at the time of the coming to force of the Constitution, we already had the 10 regions. So if you take the 10 regional ministers, it meant that the president was left with just nine other non-regional ministers to constitute his cabinet. So I don't think that the intention of those who framed the Constitution was to limit it to just
Prof, what would you say? Prof, what would you say should be the way forward to avoid the recurrence of this debate? Because it will always come up.
Yes, I think first of all, following on from where Mike spoke, you see, if deputy ministers or non-cabinet ministers are needed to manage specific projects and so on, I think we should look at how the number is determined. I believe that if the president sees the bureaucracy, the civil service and all the public services, commissions, agencies, authorities, as a formidable machinery at his disposal to use to achieve his results, I think probably in future, a meeting between the president and the top echelon leaders of this bureaucracy will probably dictate or tell him clearly where the political leadership will be required and how many. But I think that is not what we do. I think the public is concerned not just about the cost, and also about results that would improve and transform their lives. And we haven't seen that in the past. The president probably had done history by raising the number to 110, but as Kweku said, we spoke when it was 90, when it was 80, when it was 70. So people are asking, what do they come to do? And what impact do they have on our lives? And we don't have that
again,
question.
Prof, this same public is aware of what the MPP in opposition has had to say about the numbers. When when the previous government was appointing 2 deputies for information initially, where you had Okudzeto Ablakwa and then you had James Ejenim Boateng, the opposition brought forward as a big argument why we had the Information Services Department and we're not, helping them to do what they ought to do, and we're appointing 2 deputy ministers. This is the same opposition now in government that justifies.
But it tells you one thing. It tells you one thing. It tells you one thing, that when we listen more, the only agency, that is constantly, that could update you and keep you abreast on what would work, for me, is the public service, because they are permanent and they assess, they look at what has been done, what has happened, what is impacting, and so on. We need to take that into account and give that scope. Sometimes the opposition might criticize. It doesn't mean they tell you that, when we were in opposition, we saw it this way, but when we came to government, it was a different picture. How do you close that information gap, or whether it's deliberate? So looking at what needs to be delivered, I think that, and the way forward, I think that really the president And he said it once. I mean, I want him to succeed. I think there are interesting and very important transformational initiatives that we must work with him to assist, to succeed. But I think the historical fact is that wherever these things have been translated into results and transform economies and so on, the bureaucracy is at the heart of it. Okay. And he has to build the bureaucracy if it's broken. And there is too much political interference, and we want to solve problems in the bureaucracy by putting politicians in charge. Sometimes they don't have the competence. They don't have the experience and the insight. So I think he's on the verge of probably the public debate might push him a little bit into trying to meet the bureaucracy, the leaders of the civil and public services and all that, and have a certain conversation, because there are trust issues. The politicians do not trust the bureaucracy. Okay. And that's what I said. Even within the same party, change Ayariga from environment and bring somebody, you are likely to find that all the civil servants who worked with Ayariga are going to be sidelined and another group brought into it. We are destroying the most formidable institution we need to transform economy and society. Okay. And I think that, for me, that is why this debate is important. Right. And I think it might shift the president towards looking at the public services, the civil service and other agencies more seriously and face them.
Thank you.
I've been wondering what happened to the public sector reform.
Public sector reform.
What happened to it? What happened to it?
Okay.
I've been making a point that what you call the bureaucracy, because of all these issues.
And in just a minute, because we need to move on.
Yes, because of all these issues, a new layer of institutions have emerged. For instance, you go to the Ministry of Energy, you will have a director for petroleum. You have a director for power. But then you have a petroleum commission also. Now, the petroleum commission structure is not exactly the same as a civil service. So that problem has been somehow addressed for presidents to use as a machine to effectively implement their strategy when it comes to petroleum. The same with all the other subsectors. So you don't have an excuse.
But you see, it might also be that the way these authorities and agencies have created has balkanized, you see, fragmented. There are sorts of overlapping mandates and conflicts over them in government. And so you need to rationalize.
But you
and
see,
the president might decide that
the example you give about the petroleum sector, for example, I think it is the one ministry, the energy ministry, is the one ministry that people feel that the deputies are justified, because hitherto you had them separated. Now they have emerged, and there are specific roles that will be handed to each one of them. Someone will be in charge of power instead of creating a new ministry. Someone will be in charge of petroleum instead of creating a new ministry. So
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, coming out of government, that people who are not in government don't see what happens. The truth of the matter is that you will have a minister for energy who will deal directly with the executive secretary of the Energy Commission, and he will get every information that he needs in relation to
that is well noted. Can we have Mike?
With the petroleum commission,
let's have Mike and then we'll move on. Thank you. Let's have Mike. Yes, Mike. Yeah.
I was just going to respond to Mr. Mohammed Aikat. How can you say it? Because in your case, you even had a dichotomy of the ministries to create power and energy.
Oh, so you're coming to the same issue.
No, I'm not coming to the same issue. I want to expand on something. And yet there was that director of power and director of petroleum. So in the eventuality that the minister for power resigned, Mr. John Jinapor was left alone.
Yeah.
So in effect, it was Minister of Energy, 2 deputies, and John Jinapor. So we have now Minister of Energy, 2 deputies, and John Jinapor. And yet you are complaining that why are the people so many?
Thank you. Now let me take some of the messages and then we can move on. Dr. Akufo-Addo, a very regular contributor to the show, from Evans in Georgia, says that it is debatable to suggest that the moral impact of big government on citizens is always bad. As a country, we should encourage effective governance and not the size of government. We have to patiently examine the government, whether it is integrated and synergistic, whether it can produce good outcomes, or whether it can manage and preserve our resources well. We should be patient and circumspect in examining government decisions and wait for results. That will help the discourse? Well, many people say they can't wait for any results. They don't want to wait for any results. Right. You know them?
Yes.
They are opposition?
We know those who don't want to
You
wait
have
for
to be
results.
careful about that.
We know
To
him.
tag everybody as opposition
tag
because they are
everybody. We are saying we know.
criticizing.
Something when you plant corn, it has to germinate.
I hear you.
Exactly.
Now, a Japan Bernard Arno says that he's sending this from Kweu Nkwetia that okay, you are greeting your DC before you make your points. Okay, all you had to say is really about your DC. I can move on now. Then Paul Heheyi says that Honorable Hamid and his boss Nana-Addo are defending the indefensible. They have had an overwhelming endorsement, still enjoying the goodwill. But why is it that government in power are always right and the people are wrong? Mr. President, stop it now. Then Cecil Kwabna says, to be honest, if you criticize your political opponent about the size of government, and 3 months down the line, you repeat the same thing, when you take his position, don't you think you are pushing people to be irritated and also questioning your credibility?
No, we never did.
In fact, there are those who are saying that those who have been appointed, if there's any one of them who was at the forefront of the criticism of large size of government, they should immediately reject it. They should reject the appointment. Then you have, okay, Farouk, you are just greeting the panelists here. JB in Nsawam says, Nana-Addo, the show boy, wins hearts again. Nana-Addo has once again won hearts of many Ghanaians, including myself, by his unmatched humility and respect for the Ghanaian populace, by personally speaking to the issue that is so dear to a number of Ghanaians. Okay, so I get what you're saying now. Joseph Eduse says, Mr. Yarga is making a lot of sense. Change indeed is good. Kobi Ajimandria in North Legon says 110 is on the high side, though, but the president has spoken to explain why he needs such numbers. Ours is to wait and see if this leads to the greater good of the masses.
Amen.
You gentlemen are looking great in your African prints. Okay, I think it was Mike earlier who was surprised that everybody is in African print today, including Kweku Bako. Okay. Samson Menu says that I guess the president's response should put matters to rest. We can only adopt the wait and see posturing for now. We have a period where we can test the popularity or otherwise of his decisions, and that is during the elections. Nana Hesse Ojiri is sending from Dan Suman, and he says, according to CDD Ghana, quote, what is clear and certain is that a smaller government is a cost-saving measure. As a cost-saving measure, signals that a high level of discipline and focus of government that wants to protect. Let me take that again. He quotes the CDD and says, what is clear and certain is that a smaller government is a cost-saving measure that signals a high level of discipline and focus of a government that wants to protect the public purse, unquote. This is indeed the weakest thought by a governance think tank. First of all, which research provided them with this weird hypothesis? The erstwhile John Mahama government had a small number of ministers compared to the size of the Akufo-Addo list of ministerial appointees. Yet the smaller number authorized the payment of 51 million cedis to Woyome and very unnecessary judgment debt. So CDD is telling Ghanaians that payment to Woyome was cost-saving because Mahama government was smaller. God save us. Nana Hesse Ojiri. And that's another worrying thing that people are talking about, that suddenly the government think tanks that were said to be against the NDC are now being said to be against the NPP. Very interesting scenario. We take a quick break. We will be back.